A couple of years ago, I was working front desk at a hotel in a small town off the interstate in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure how other hotels do it, but unless it was a busy summer, front desk agents worked alone on every shift. Since it was second shift, that meant all the housekeepers had left hours ago. My manager was gone for the day, the maintenance man was gone, and I was the only person in this 3-story hotel, with the exception of about 4 rooms that were being rented. Since it was about 7 at night, I'm pretty sure all but one of those guests were out to dinner. Even as a woman, it never really bothered me to work by myself at night. I was cautious, but never creeped out too badly. I mostly spent the long, boring hours either catching up on homework or watching Jeopardy on the lobby TV. But I'm not sure what I was doing when he walked in. The sun had already set, but it was still light out. He came through the front doors and walked over to the desk. I couldn't see his car anywhere, which was odd, since usually check-ins park under the overhang to unload luggage. I didn't think much of it and asked him how he was doing. He was maybe 5'8", medium build, dark hair, glasses. Looked like a normal 20-something kid. He said he wanted to know if I could help him, and proceeded to go into a very heartfelt story about how he had been to other hotels off this exit, and they had all turned him down. He and his sister ran away from home a while ago, and that he came all the way from California to pick her up from, I think, New Jersey? Being that he was from California, and that it was starting to be gross winter weather here, I laughed a little and said, "Yeah, sorry, it's so awful here." He paused. He stared at me completely stone-faced, as if I'd just made a joke at his expense. "What do you mean?" "Just the weather," I tried to recover. I was used to making worthless small talk and jokey conversations with guests, but nobody had ever taken anything I said casually so seriously. It's not exactly California weather outside. I love it here. I think it's beautiful," he said, and again stared. I didn't know what to say. Think about it. What would you say to that? I tried to laugh it off and said to him I'd trade him, but he just stared. Finally he goes, "Anyway, the reason I'm here is that I've been driving almost non-stop for a couple days, and I've honestly got almost no money to me." Here it comes, I thought. Some guy is going to ask me for a room at a crazy low rate because he sees the parking lot is almost empty. Before I can say anything, he continues, "I don't want a room. I just need a place to take a shower really quick. I swear. I won't touch anything or mess anything up. I honestly just need a shower really badly." I thought about it for a minute. At the time, I hated my manager. I knew she'd never allow it, and for whatever reason, nothing in my brain screamed stranger danger. So I finally agreed. He told me he'd give me his driver license to hold until he was done, but I trusted him. He ran out to his car to get some clothes, and I gave him a handful of tiny soaps, shampoo, and some towels, so he didn't fuck up the ones the maids put in the room this morning. I put him in a room right down the hall from the front desk so that I could keep an eye on him. He went in, and I went back to watching YouTube videos. A couple minutes later, he comes down to the desk. "I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't figure out how to turn the shower on. Can you show me?" I'm sure you're thinking exactly what I was when I look back in the situation, but no. I didn't see why this was a dangerous situation at the time. A young woman, alone in a hotel room with a stranger, who hasn't left any kind of trail or identification, with no other employees on property, almost no other guests. Yeah, I'm stupid. I got up and switched the phone lines from switchboard to cordless, and took the receiver with me into the back. I grabbed the keys and locked up the front desk area before following him down the hallway to his room. I had easily 50 pounds on him, and about 2 inches height, so I guess I felt secure. I opened the door and walked in. While he followed behind me, I heard the door click and realized immediately that I wanted to leave. I just walked to the bathtub, turned on the water, easiest to understand taps by the way, and ran my hand under the stream a few times. "Just pull up on that when you're ready," I said, and scurried to the door. I could hear him saying something behind me, but I opened the door and walked out. I got back to the front desk, locked the door behind me, and sat down. At this point I was a little shaken at what just happened, but talked myself down by reminding myself that if he was going to murder me, he would have by now. Again, dumb. Finally, he comes down the hallway and hands me the towels and empty bottles of shampoo, body wash. He says he's hungry, so I point to the breakfast area in the lobby and tell him there's some apples and bananas sitting out for breakfast, and he can take some for the road. I remember hinting that I wanted him to leave. He walks a few yards over to the counter and grabs a banana and an apple, then comes back to the front desk. What did you say your name was again? Queen Frostine, I said hesitantly. He can see my name tag. How old are you? 23. Can I ask you a question, Queen Frostine? He seemed so confident, almost robotic, like this was Groundhog Day, and he has relived this uncomfortable, awkward half hour 50 times before, and has no reason to think anything is weird or spooky or inappropriate. I was standing now, and I moved a little farther from the desk, casually putting my back against the wall, and adding another foot or so of space between us. Do you have a boyfriend, Queen Frostine? I said I did. He asked me. Really? I wasn't lying, but perhaps he thought I was, I wondered. I assured him I did, and he gave me an odd look. The best way to describe it is that he saw something funny in his head, and was amused by it, but more amused by the fact that he was the only person who could see it. That's really weird, he continued. Why is that weird? I asked. He told me it was weird again, and I racked my brain trying to think of what he meant. Was he implying I'm ugly? Did he think I was a lesbian? Any and all solutions came flooding over me, so fast yet none of them fit. Why is that so weird? It just is. He smiled a little. Okay, I let out. I stood there, staring at the floor a little bit, then back at him. Anyway, I gotta go. Thanks for the shower. And the fruit. He said as he walked out the door. I watched his car pull away, but couldn't tell what kind it was. It was that weird kind of time in the early winter where it goes from dusk to pitch black night in what feels like 10 minutes. I sat back down, rattled. I couldn't believe how uncomfortable I was all of a sudden. My stomach burned inside, and I was relieved he was gone. For the first time I felt truly scared in that hotel by myself. I got up and ran to the laundry room that connects to the front desk. I made sure the door leading to the lobby on that side was locked. It was. I ran to the other side of the laundry room and skidded into the door that leads out to the public hallways. I checked to make sure it was locked. It wasn't. I usually didn't lock it on the off chance that I'd go to the bathroom and forget my keys some night. I slammed it shut and latched it. The phone rang. I walked over to pick up the cordless that I'd laid next to the switchboard. Thank you for calling. This is all the further I got. Hey, Queen Frostine. I paused for a second, shocked that someone messed up my spiel. It definitely wasn't my boyfriend's voice, nor was it the maintenance man. It's Adam. I was just in there. I could literally feel my heart sink. I looked at the door but couldn't see him there. The darkness on the outside unsettled me, and I slipped behind the doorway to the front desk and into the laundry room. I didn't know if he was outside watching me, but I didn't want to be seen. I mumbled an, "Oh, hey," trying to be casual and failing. He continued, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know why I said it was weird that you have a boyfriend." I peeked out again to see if he was at the door yet, but nobody was there. I think it's weird that you have a boyfriend, but you still let a guy come in and shower. I could feel my pulse quicken. I mean, that's what's so weird. Is it? I asked, trying to keep my composure as I ran through the laundry room and rechecked the doors. Then I remembered the only door that wouldn't lock. The door directly to the outside. the back of the hotel where employees would sneak out to smoke weed. The latch had been broken for a while, and our manager decided that decorating the lobby for Thanksgiving came before safety issues in terms of budget. I stepped back to the doorway that led to the front desk to the laundry room, and locked that one behind me. "Yeah," he continued, "I mean, you have a boyfriend, and you still let me come in for a shower. I don't know. Don't you think that's weird?" "No," I said, trying to end the conversation in a short tone. "That's all I wanted to say. Anyway, I'll see you soon, Queen Frostine," he finished almost threateningly. I hung up the phone. I called my sister and told her to send her husband over, but she insisted on calling the police. I made her promise not to, as I didn't want to lose my job. I called the maintenance man, since I knew he lived right up the road, and told him to hurry over. I called my boyfriend and told him to please come. I wanted my bases covered so that someone would show up within 10 or 15 minutes. I never heard from him again, and we all kept it a secret from my manager to keep me from getting fired. I hadn't thought about this for a while, but looking back on it, it's entirely creepy to me. Let me preface this by saying, when this happened, I realized I'm an idiot. The biggest, most naive idiot in the world. I thought that because I had lived in so many countries and seen so many cultures, that I was smarter than I was, and more grown up than my peers. God, was I wrong. So when this story takes place, I'm 14 and I'm attending a boarding school in Connecticut. I'm female. My family is in Switzerland, so I only see them on school holidays. I'm going through my emo phase, moody and pissed at the mainstream, and hating how preppy my school is. I make friends with the most non-mainstream kids I could find there. At 22, I still cringe at my past self. One of my friends was dating this townie, who wanted to be a tattoo artist, and boy did I want a tattoo, and I couldn't wait to turn 18. He agreed to tattoo me as he was just learning, and didn't have his license, so what harm could happen? Side note, I now have a terrible tattoo, but I digress. We talk and agree that I'll take the bus to Waterbury and meet him on the green, where all the buses meet and transfer. Because I had no idea about the layout of the area, as I stayed in the campus bubble. If you don't know, Waterbury CT has its nice parts, but where I was gross. Shootings happen regularly, crackheads abound. It's not a good part of town, but back then I didn't care. I thought I would be fine. So, it's Saturday. I just finished classes, yep, we had Saturday classes, and I'm all excited about getting this tattoo and being edgy. I jump on the bus and text my friend's boyfriend I'm on my way. Fast forward, and I'm at the green, waiting for him to get out of his classes. He texts me to say he will be an hour late. Great. What the hell am I supposed to do in the shitty part of town alone? 2 hours pass, and he says he will be done in an hour. I really wanted this tattoo, so I waited. I had been sitting there for probably 2.5 hours when I noticed this big black SUV pull up and park in the bus drop-off zone. This big black guy comes out. The windows are tinted, so I don't know if he's alone, and he sits right next to me. There were loads of empty benches, but he chose the one I was on. Red flag. I'm dressed in a band shirt, black skinny jeans with Converse, weird colours in my hair, the usual emo regalia. Nothing was revealing, but I stuck out. I thought he just wanted to talk to me because I was different. Again, I'm a total idiot. He then starts asking me what I'm doing there, where I'm from and how old I am. Because I thought I could take on the world, I boldly told him that I was just 14, but more mature than people my age, and blah blah blah. Then things got weirder. His eyes light up when I say my age, and he asks if I'm a virgin, and if I've ever given anyone a blowjob. This is where I panic. I stutter and my face gets red. He laughs and puts his hand on my thigh and squeezes. He says I could jump into his car and he'd treat me right, and bring me right back in a few hours. I don't know what to do or say. I'm looking around for an adult, but it was a lull, and no buses were there. The man tries to pull me closer to him, and I'm terrified. Baby girl, it will only be a few hours. Let me show you how a real man does it. Ever had a black dick before? Once you go black, you never go back. He laughs a deep laugh after this and stares right at me. I lose it at this point. I'm nauseous and about to cry. He sees this and smiles even more, clearly enjoying how uncomfortable I am. He then gets up and starts pulling my arm to get me up and steer me to his car. I try to resist, but it's a 5'8", 140-pound girl against a 6'2", 250-pound man. He starts to get aggressive when I resist and is really pulling me along. I'm about halfway into his car when I hear someone yell, "Hey, get away from her!" The black man lets me go and books it to his car and peels off like he's being chased by the police. He probably thought it was the police, to be honest. I look at who saved me, and it's a bus driver who was waiting for his shift to start and watching us from a nearby Dunkin's. I just fall to the ground and sob. I've never been approached by anyone like this. Never been so close to God knows what awful thing this man could have done to me. I was so helpless. The bus driver calls the police and reports the incident, giving a partial of the plate and a description. I tried my best to give a description of the guy, but I was in such shock, I don't think I was very useful. I didn't hear anything from it later. I assume they didn't find the guy. In the end, I take another bus back to school and don't tell anyone I was nearly abducted and raped, or worse. I couldn't stand to have them think I was weak or couldn't take care of myself, and I was so embarrassed by what I had gotten myself into. So I didn't tell anyone till a year ago. I'm back in that part of the world, and told one of my high school friends when we drove past that exact spot what had happened, and she was shocked. I realized just how in debt I am to that bus driver who literally saved me from being at least abducted. Who knows what that man had in store for me if he got me into his SUV. I ended up meeting with my friend's boyfriend the weekend after, and he made up some bullshit excuse for not meeting me at the agreed upon time, giving me a fake apology. I was so pissed at him after the terrible tattoo he gave me. I never talked to him again. It was Friday. The small company I worked for was allowing us to leave at lunchtime, which happened often. I had an hour commute back to my parents' house where I was living. I had recently moved home from another state, after a bad breakup. I had a great book in my car and I decided, just to have some alone time, I wanted to sit in my car and read and drink a Diet Coke. Sort of relax before heading home. I decided I would go to a local Publix grocery, being sure to choose one that was in a good neighborhood, for safety. Even though this major city tended to be a low-crime area, sometimes things did happen, and it always pays to be careful. While in Publix, I was walking around the store, had to purchase some cosmetic items, grabbed my Coke, a bag of pretzels, etc. A thought just sort of popped into my mind, that it is not really safe to sit in a car in a parking lot. I really wanted to read and relax, so I chalked that thought up to my mother always trying to scare me. She did not like me sitting in my car reading, and she would remind me of two ladies that met violent fates. Both were in parking lots in this very city. So I paid for my stuff and headed out to my car. Now this particular Publix had a ginormous parking lot. I opted to park in the back for privacy. There were no other cars in the back other than mine. It was a nice, cool day, late autumn, but it was sunny, so it quickly became stuffy in the car. To stay cool, I opened my driver's side door all the way out. Every now and then I would glance all around me, just making certain things were okay. Because even though it was a good neighborhood, I know it pays to be careful. I had just glanced around, saw nobody, went back to my book. Seconds later, a male voice says, "Pardon me, miss." I look up from my book, and this big guy was standing right there. To describe, he was tall but wide and stocky built, dirty blonde hair, slightly unkempt, slightly overweight. He was wearing a backpack. My first thought was he was going to ask for money. I've been approached on occasion by homeless people. They usually ask for money for a hamburger. If I have change, I would give it to them. If not, I say sorry, and they thank me and leave. Up to that point, I had never had a problem with anyone that approached me like that, so I wasn't afraid. I was a little unnerved that this guy had sneaked up on me, but still not concerned for my safety. He said, "My father is very sick in Tennessee. I was told that there was a homeless shelter over on Dale Martin Street that will buy me a bus ticket to go home." I thought, oh, he just wants directions to Dale Martin Street. So I told him that I wasn't real familiar with that area, but I did know that it was about a block and a half over and pointed in the direction. I was kind of anxious to get back to my book, and I assumed he would thank me and leave. Well, he didn't. He repeated the very same thing over about his father, and the shelter, and etc. I don't feel afraid or anything yet, but as I repeated once again where that street was located, I also dropped a major hint and told him he probably should ask someone other than me, since I was not real familiar with the area. I thought he would thank me and move along. Well, he didn't. So he told me the same thing again. I began, again, to give him the same directions to the general area that I had already given him twice. While I was talking, all of a sudden a light bulb went off in my mind. I'm not a dummy. I was just really into my book and anxious to get back to it. He was dropping a major hint that he wanted me to load him up in my car and drive him over. Well, I'm not about to give him a ride anywhere. I knew too many stories about bad things and I didn't know him, so of course that is not an option. While I was once again giving him directions and reiterating how close that street was, this is where it began to get crazy. While I was talking, he took a stance, like planting his feet. Then he crossed his arms over his chest and his facial countenance changed. His eyes became very cold and I realized he was becoming very angry and hostile, and that hostility was directed toward me. So I look around the parking lot. Even though there were no cars in the back where I was, I still thought maybe there would be many people coming out of the store to get in their cars, so I wasn't out there alone. Well, no one was coming out, except a couple of bag boys pushing carts back into the store and a middle-aged lady getting in her car and leaving, a long way from where I was parked. I turned back around and looked up at him. He was looking around also. Not a good feeling there. I realized that he could shove me over and get in the car and who knows what would happen. He was a big, husky-built guy and much taller than my 5'4", 135 pounds. There was no way I was going to do something to trigger him taking some kind of action, like me cursing him out or something. But I felt trapped and vulnerable in my car, with him standing over me. If you're wondering why I didn't just shut the door, lock it, crank up, and drive away, well, I had this really crappy car, all I could afford at the time, and the driver's side door lock was broken. I was afraid he would have the door snatched open before I could leave. He was standing close enough to do that. Also, at that time in my life, I had no cell phone. I was barely surviving financially. Could not afford one. So, I decided I was getting out of my car, and hoped I could catch him by surprise when I did so. So I grabbed my purse, got out, and headed to the other side of my car, very quickly. I said, "I hope your dad gets okay. I have to go back in the store for something." I then noped it back into the store. Was I overreacting? I don't think so. He was really having some anger issues there. I have often thought of this incident. First of all, he was very close to his destination. Why not just keep going? Why bother me at all? Secondly, we were in a parking lot. When he saw I was not taking the bait, why didn't he just go ask someone else, if a ride was that important? Third, why was he getting angry and seemingly refusing to leave? Also, I have talked to a few people over the years since that incident happened, some law enforcement, and they have told me that none of the shelters, at least at that time, had a plan like that in place, that they did not buy bus tickets. Most everyone that I told this to believed this guy had bad intentions, but to give the benefit of the doubt, maybe he was upset about his father and just acting inappropriately. I don't believe that, but I guess anything's possible. I believe I saw this guy again a few years later. It was a creepy encounter, but not like this was. That's another story for another time. So, creepy stranger that likes to harass women in a parking lot. Let's not meet. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer again. Thanks very much for listening to episode 21. That's me just past the 300 subscriber mark. It might actually be a bit more by the time I post this. So thanks very much. Much quicker than I expected that to happen. So I'm very grateful to everyone who's enjoying the stories and decided to subscribe. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take care.